everyone. My name is Salil. I'm co-founder and CEO of AdSkate, and welcome to AdSkate's podcast series. This is basically a platform where we bring together experts from digital advertising to sort of learn new things that are happening in the advertising space and share it with you. The idea is to have a sort of clear, concise summary sort of every month about some of the latest trends happening in the programmatic space. Today, I have one of those experts today that I have with me on the call today is Mike Hathaway. Just a quick sort of a summary on Mike. Mike started his advertising career at GDB, moved on to Universal McCann, where he worked on sort of played various different roles, working with media teams, vendors, as well as clients, specifically in the multi-touch attribution space. After sort of McCann, Mike worked at Xaxis, which is a WPP company, essentially a trading platform, where he sort of really brought together the power of data and how it can be used on a variety of different campaigns. And right now, Mike is working at Google. So, Mike, hey, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Perfect. And where does this podcast find you today?
I am in Culver City, which is a city in Los Angeles County.
Perfect. Nice. I wish I was there now.
It rained all night. It's pretty cold today.
Yeah. It's November in Toronto, so I'd take any place in California at this point in time.
That's fair.
You worked across a variety of different campaigns in your career, a programmatic variety of different brands with different objectives, and different spends, different sizes, etc. So, given your experience in the programmatic space specifically, what do you see, over a period of time? What do you see? What are the changes that are happening as far as that? Some that are going to have sort of major impact or in the programmatic space.
Definitely Google's decision to sunset cookies, which keeps getting pushed out year by year. The iOS 14.1 change that kind of changed app tracking. So, Facebook and Snap lost a large part of their advertising revenue because they weren't able to track users as well. And that's kind of pushing out that inventory and that audience and that creative first strategy where you're thinking about, hey, you need to find the right audience with the right message, but it's a lot harder to do now. So you need either those contextual signals or you need that robust first-party data that a lot of advertisers and agencies are building out now because you can use customer match lists. There's something similar on the meta side for that advertising as well, where you can match to emails, which is really simple and a robust way to get around that loss of the third-party tracking.
Okay. Now, given all these changes that are happening and these latest trends, what are some things that maybe an analyst or somebody who owns the campaign, what are some of these things that they should keep in mind, or what are some of the sort of wild cards, or you should say strategies that you have encountered that can help them optimize their campaigns and sort of as the landscape changes, in other words, what can companies do to get the most out of their programmatic campaign, if you will?
I think from my experience, I believe the inventory has always been very key to that, like making sure you're striking the right partnerships. Sorry, that's my cat in the background. Making sure you're striking the right partnerships, you're accessing the right inventory. So that's large players like NBC, Universal, you're talking Netflix, that huge play they just put out. Like in a year or two, when they build that platform out, they're going to have a really strong play on being able to reach users that advertisers want to talk to, and they have all that information for you, fully anonymized, fully brand safe, and fully privacy safe. So that's kind of what the larger players are putting together. But if you're on a smaller scale and you're not able to access those large deals, you can still use DSPs like Trade Desk or Xandr or even DV360 that give you access to some of those deals and some of those things without having to be able to strike those partnerships yourself. But on the analytics side, you're thinking audience and you're thinking inventory for sure. So whether it be a contextual audience, whether it be something built in a platform, maybe from a Meta, maybe from a Google, or if you're thinking your own customer match list that you're putting into the platform, that's also going to be really important because that's first party, that's durable, that's going to be safe, even as the new regulations continue to roll out. I believe Virginia just rolled out some that go on top of the California one, and the EU is continuously kind of pushing that agenda and bringing that forward. So just continuing to keep that in mind and knowing that you can always control inventory, you can always control audience is a great way to optimize, because there's no black box, there's no question marks. You know what type of inventory you're delivering on, as long as you're building those audience first strategies and thinking about privacy and making sure it's robust in the ever-changing world. That's always a lever you can pull as well.
Yeah, I think the key takeaways that I can think about is always keep in mind inventory and audience, and the fact that choose a platform or an avenue or a channel, what have you, that allows you to control these two attributes in a much better fashion. Yeah, I think the key that's perfect. Now, again, with these changes happening, and these changes have been happening over the last sort of 3-4 years. It started with GDPR in Europe, CCPA. Google keeps on going back and forth about when it's going to sort of fade out the third-party cookies. What are some of the recurring mistakes, problems that you feel brands have to deal with as these changes sort of progress? And then how can they deal with some of the issues that they might run into because of these changes?
Yeah. So a lot of what you see is with all these new privacy regulations and things rolling out, there's new drop downs or checkboxes in a platform. And if you build all of your campaigns in platform, there is a high propensity for mistakes, as opposed to utilizing an automated tool or maybe structured data files or something where you kind of build it all out in Excel, double check, and then upload. That's the number one thing, is just like account health and making sure you're setting things up appropriately. You see that from experienced advertisers to rookie advertisers. And that's really important too, to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you build a campaign out and get ready to set something live, because that can be a huge time sink. Another thing I've seen is kind of not having a strong KPI point of view or a goal for a campaign. And, maybe not a lead gen advertiser or someone that has a very specific, I want a user to call, I want to drive them to the website and fill out a lead form. They know exactly who they're chasing and how to get them. But when you're thinking about a large brand campaign or awareness or something where you just want to kind of hit a wide scope of people, and you may not have a specific action like purchase some new shoes or something along those lines, that's a little difficult too. And the leadership, whether it be client or agency side, needs to have a very strong point of view on what success for that campaign looks like. So when you're making those optimizations, when you're checking in every week, you know exactly what target you're aiming for, and it's not kind of moving back and forth. We're looking at clicks. We're looking at impressions. We're trying to get reach. Having that up front, like, this is a reach play. We want to reach as many users as possible at a solid CPM and kind of expand our audience awareness-wise. That's a really strong play, because you know what you're going for and you know what you can measure against.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting, yet sort of simple strategy that brands or anybody who's running a programmatic strategy can follow. Like, keep your eyes on the KPI, define that before you fly the campaign, because once you have that KPI, what you said makes totally sense. Then you can sort of have different buttons or knobs that you can place around it, and then it's really playing around with them. But in the end, as long as you're focused on your KPI, then you can really optimize it towards that goal. So that makes totally sense.
Another thing I've seen is
now shifting gears slightly a little bit, right? Like today, given the amount of tools and technologies that you have access to when you're running a digital campaign, I mean, you can go crazy when it comes to like finding the right kind of audience at the right time, in the right place, whether it is inventory, what have you, online. But then there is, which, data gives you a lot of visibility into, but you have this one element of the campaign, which is ads or creatives, so to speak, right? And we're seeing some trends moving around, leveraging data and these new AI models that are coming out towards analyzing creative. So given that, you've spent a lot of time sort of in the weeds with data as it relates to digital advertising, do you feel that application of data towards studying creatives and getting insights from them, do you think would they be useful to a programmatic or a digital campaign?
Oh, 100%. Like you said, the data and the inventory is really important to find the right user, but creative is also what draws that user in. So you need something that they want to action on, whether it be calling a telephone number, whether it be going to a website or going out to maybe Target and buying a new kid's toy. Like having creative that grabs the target audience and gets them to either click through or engage with your brand in some sort of way is really important. And just like we were talking about having all that audience data and all of that inventory data, having creative data is really important too. And a lot of agencies do a lot of creative testing where they have robust creative teams, or even if you have a small team, you build out quite a few different assets. You're not just building out one. So that way you can test all of those assets, whether it be, a car in slightly different positions or in different colors or having maybe different sizing. There's a lot of effort that goes into that upfront creative process. So that way they can test all of these things, kind of roll as they go along, whether it's an automated system in maybe a campaign manager or a Google Ads, or they're doing it by hand, rotating that creative out, evaluating performance every week or every 2 weeks. That's a really important part as well. And that has just as much of a place as the inventory and the audience pieces do in programmatic.
Perfect. Now, you brought about a very interesting point about having that variation in creatives and constantly testing and measuring what's working, what's not working here, whether it's a specific call to action, whether it's a specific color, whether it's a placement of the product, right? That's very interesting. Now, any strategies or any tools that come to your mind or which you've used in the past that allow brands to do this very effectively, or is it right now where people have to literally sort of collect that data manually, plug it into Excel or Google Sheets or Data Studio, and run these simulations that you talk about, or is there a better way of doing it according to in your experience, so to speak?
I mean, you would hope with the way that specifically Google and Trade Desk and a lot of the larger players, they put a lot of automation into their tools to kind of build out planning or, pulling avails. You would hope that they would give you that availability in the future to creative test against kind of a subset of users that have already interacted with your campaign and maybe test out how they would feel that creative would perform. But really it's just pulling a lot of data, dumping it into Data Studio, Datarama, et cetera, and making sure obviously that your naming conventions are really strong and you have very good delimiters between all of your parameters. So that way you can break out this creative sizing, this color, this, et cetera. And a lot of it's just dropping it out into an Excel or a PowerPoint deck and kind of bring that information back to a client or to an agency team to work with them.
Okay, perfect. Now, I don't really mean to brag about AdSkate in this podcast series, but let's say if you were to have a tool that allowed you to automatically extract this data, populate it, and get the insights that you needed to make actionable decisions, I'm guessing that would be valuable to somebody who's running or controlling a programmatic campaign.
Yes, 100%. Having some sort of automatic tool or, AI-powered tool, machine learning, however you want to put it, pull that data for you and put it together means that's less of a manual lift for you, and you can spend more time actually working on optimizing the campaigns and not putting that data together to present to someone. You can have that readout ready. You can analyze that, take it in, and then develop an action plan off of it a lot faster than putting all that effort in yourself.
Perfect. Again, shifting gears furthermore slightly into the streaming world or streaming wars, so to speak. It's a fascinating subject for me, and I'm really curious about how this whole thing is going to pan out with Netflix now working with Microsoft to launch their sort of paid ad tier at a lower subscription fee. Disney also announced that they're going to launch an ad supported tier for their viewers. You have many others as well, not to mention Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, Tubi, so on and so forth. It's the space is starting to get a little bit crowded and intense. We'd love to hear your take on how sort of advertising and streaming worlds are going to come together. Any interesting predictions you have on that space?
My prediction is Netflix in about a year will have all the tools they need to really weaponize their user base and their content. Like, they have an incredible amount of content, a lot of it self-produced. And, if you think about all the dating shows that they're putting on and you want to package up that audience with the scale that they have, that's easily anonymized. There's no privacy regulation issues. It's easily packaged up as, okay, you want to sell to our dating app viewers, here you go. And we can also drop in, other original content. We can drop in, Lifetime, we can drop in animals, we can drop in all of that stuff. And they have that audience data that they're definitely building out the capability. They don't have it right now. We've seen how kind of so-so the launch has been, with just inventory availability being down and not really many targeting parameters, but they will build that out. And they're utilizing the largest software company in the world and partnering with them. And they're going to build a solution that will work. It may not be the best to use for, maybe people like me that have to run it, but it will work for exactly the goals they're going for, which is to reach a wide audience, be able to deliver that advertising. And they're going to give you that targeted advertising that you're looking for by bundling up those pieces. And you hope that's the direction they're going with it, because it's not just going to be a spray and pray. It's going to look a lot like TV, where you're buying in an ad slot in a time that but instead of buying at that time, you're just buying that show. And that's the way the streaming world is moving. Other people are a little slower to adopt, but I think Netflix has the capital to burn and they have the inventory to be able to do that. And people, like, you saw the mad rush for all of the large advertisers that wanted to be in the Netflix play. That's not going to go away. People value that way more than they value even a Hulu. So that's going to be where people are going to put their money. And Disney is going to be another one just like that. They have such a hyper kind of like fanatical audience about their content that even if they're sitting through the ads, that they're going to be engaged in some way, shape, or form. And you're going to be able to package that up too, with easily broken out. You can't advertise around the kids' content. You can't do this. And we can advertise specifically around the adults and things like that, because they will have those brand safety controls. They have that data, they have that information, and they have the ability to put that together. Like, I'm not worried about them packaging that up and being able to sell that inventory and make sure it's brand safe and privacy safe.
No, I think just to add, you brought out some interesting trends out there. One is just the sheer amount of content that someone like Netflix has, and being able to package that in a contextually relevant manner. You gave the example of people who are interested in dating apps and sort of content surrounding romantic comedies or romance movies in general. Same applies to Disney. Wide variety of content. Fairly structured, fairly segmented, a huge fan following, and with cord cutters sort of rising and people shifting from linear TV towards streaming platform, it'll be interesting to see how advertising adapts to it. And it's all digital, right? Like, so you have more insights, more data, more tools and technologies to play with. And we just barely scratched the surface with Netflix and Disney as an example right now. But when you think about the others, like the HBO Max, ESPN, TSN here in Canada, you really have a whole new world evolving, I feel, when it comes to both video advertising as well as advertising on streaming platforms. Well, that's pretty much what we had for you today, Mike. Thank you so much again for shedding light on some of the important trends that are happening in the digital advertising space. For viewers, I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to go ahead and post them either on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or email it as well. Email us at contact@adskate.com. So thanks, Mike. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day. I appreciate it.